And over time, you will also develop something that's kind of like a sixth sense or a spidey sense for an intuition, an instinct for what you think is good. I would recommend to get your Hall of Heroes together. What is the Hall of Heroes, you might ask? Good question. I'm glad you asked. At a very young age, I was studying comic books. I was lucky enough to grow up in an age where we had a renaissance of amazing comic book artists. I'm talking about Jim Lee, Masamune Shirow, Arthur Adams. I mean, just guys who I could spend hours poring over their work, poring over through their back catalogs, their pencils, everything I could get my hands on. I was just consuming it all, and they really good at what they did. And they became heroes of mine. They're some of the reasons that I'm an artist today. And you can learn a lot from having heroes. You can learn a lot about what you want to do with your career, and you can learn a lot about what maybe things you would do differently. Not to critique the masters, far be it from me to do that. But you can make changes according to what you see them do and just learn from their techniques. I also think having heroes gives you people to look up to stylistically, content-wise, or even choices they made along the way. Decisions that worked out or didn't work out. And I think there's a big difference between having a hero and idolizing. I make a distinction there. I don't idolize other artists because that's putting them, deifying, put them on a pedestal, that kind of thing. They're still people, just like you and me. They're just really good at what they do, right? There's, I guess, no just to that. They are really good at what they do. And I respect them as such. So they're a hero to me, but idolizing, that might be a little too much of a stretch because I don't know these people in real life. But I do think it's very important, especially when moving into a new discipline or a new medium or something you just have never tried before, to know who you look up to, who does it like you want to do it one day. Who's got it figured out, or who does it in a way that you think is really good. So in each arena that I've tried my hand at, so every writing or art or whatever I've tried, I've always got somebody I know I think they've got it figured out. They do it as good as you could possibly do it in my mind. A buddy of mine who made music said it best, where he said, if you want to know how to make good music, you have to know what music sounds good to you or what you like first. And the best musicians are the ones who really know what they love intimately and understand those things they love front to back, back to front. It gives you a starting point. We all start imitation. We all start copying other people. And when you're choosing those people to imitate, to start off, just kind of learning your chops, paying your dues, pay attention to who you're choosing. And find out about them, their story, what they're like. Maybe they might even have a blog or a YouTube channel or a book about their life. Pick your heroes, but also know your heroes as well as you possibly can without, being weird about it. Maybe read about their story, their journey. And I bet money that will give you some insights into your choices, your path, and maybe where you want to take it one day. At this stage in the sketch process, it's a little all over the place. But I'm starting to get some building blocks, some Lego pieces that fit together. And this is, I think, our second or third sketch pass. I'm getting a little more specific, adding a little more detail, getting a little bit more refined with each pass. And I'm also identifying problems, strangeness in the anatomy, things that are wonky or just aren't working for me. and I'm trying to either figure them out or eliminate them. Sometimes you don't know what's going on or what's wrong. That comes from just repetition and studies and just learning experience over time. And there were things in here that I didn't know how to fix right away. I just kept trying. Some things, it doesn't become apparent right away. This wasn't all one sitting. I'll just be clear about that. I would take a break every maybe half an hour, something like that. And I'm not just talking about a 5-minute break. I'm talking about take myself away from the computer, do something else for a while, basically refresh my eyes. There's a way that you can get, I don't know what the word is. Your eyes can just kind of get used to seeing it, and that can either create a false sense of security about it, where you're like, oh, this is awesome, this is going really well, when it really isn't. Or it can make you hate it when things are actually going pretty well. It'll lie to you one way or the other. And so that's one of the funny ways burnout gets us, right? So we start saying, oh, I suck, or I can't do this, or just basically being mean to ourselves. Now I'm moving into what I would consider the inks, or the ink pass, but I'm still sketching, which means I'm not looking for really crisp. I mean, they're crisper lines than what I was using before, but they're not searching for studio level production at this point. I'm actually just trying to draw things out or pull things out of the mix that either weren't clear to me or to the audience, to the viewer, or find a little bit of extra, like, okay, within this mech here, I'm looking to define the edges. I'm looking to make a stronger, not just silhouette, but stronger impact, like to have the character have more personality. And depending on how you use your ink lines, you can either kind of make them more pronounced as a character, or it can get lost in the mix. So I think less is more when it comes to these level inks. I don't try to one-for-one match every line that I did before. I'm actually trying to paint in the darker shadows and the hard edges, I guess. And adding a little bit of the rule of cool, or just stuff that looks good, because this is more of a final pass. I don't often go to the rule of cool. I think it can be a very self-defeating principle. If you're not careful, everything starts to just be form over function. Just because you liked how it looked, you did it. I think everything's got to serve a purpose. But there's a time for having a little razzle dazzle, a little showmanship. And I think the ink pass is where you can actually have a lot of fun with how you do that. It takes time. I would suggest doing it on a different layer. And one thing you can't see in this recording is that I was using the eraser a lot. After I'd get the line down, I would actually erase certain places in the middle or other places that make it look less like a line and more like a part of the character. It's a little hard to explain, but sometimes just a straight line looks like exactly like what it is. But if you start cutting off little pieces of it, it can look a lot sharper. So the eraser is your best friend, especially in some of these final passes, if you're looking to get these super tasty shapes and lines that look less like lines and more like a part of the character itself. Hard to explain, but once you get into it and start trying that for yourself, I think those things will start to make a little more sense. A lot of this figuring out that I'm doing now with the ink pass, or accentuation of the character, the stuff that was in there in the sketch, but I want to bring it to the forefront. I'm actually figuring these things out on the page. I know we think of ideas happening in our head, typically. That's where we have our ideas. But when it comes to drawing out and refining of art and sketches and visual art, I find a lot of times these ideas have to be worked out on the page and sometimes struggled out. It doesn't always happen exactly as I want it to or exactly as I was hoping, but oftentimes it happens better than I was expecting. And I think that should be the benchmark more than perfection. Perfection is kind of it's an idea. It's not a real thing. Stephen Hawking had this great bit talking about if perfect was a real thing in nature, there'd be no universe because the Big Bang would have happened and everything would have spread out perfectly and nothing would have joined together in the chaos that we know as the universe as it is. Right? So that the universe only exists because of imperfection. I thought that was a very cool point from a man much smarter than I. But I think that's very true, and perfection is a human idea. It's something we impose, and everybody's got a different idea. You could ask 100 people in a room, what is perfect for this project, this drawing, this situation? Everybody would come up with a different answer. So there is no real benchmark. It is just an idea. And I would suggest to leave that idea by the wayside and drive away in the other direction as fast as possible. And if you've stuck around this long, you are a soldier, a trooper, and a true gem. Thank you. This is the Big Bad Anime Channel. My name is Noah. I've been your host. It has been my pleasure, my honor to be here. We're just getting started, everybody, but we are having a good time. This is just part 4 of our first sketch series, soon to be continued in part 5. All right, everybody, have a great day. Do something nice for yourself, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.